Welcome back to Newsmax Now. I'm Miranda Kahn. Air Force officials are trying to figure out how two airmen died during a parachute training accident. There they are, Sergeant Timothy Officer and Sergeant Marty Beteljun, seen here. They died yesterday after participating in the military training exercise here in Florida. Sergeant Officer was a 14-year veteran. He received 2 Bronze Star medals for his bravery in combat. Republican Senator John Cornyn is now pushing a new bill aimed at making it harder for the mentally ill to obtain guns. The bill has the support of the NRA. It encourages states to share information, mental health information, with the federal background check system. And divorced Catholics deserve better. At least that's what Pope Francis believes. And he's asking the church to treat those who remarry better. Some believe his remarks could lead to the church lifting its communion ban on divorced Catholics. Netflix is giving new parents a full year off once their child is born. The company says it will help employees avoid the headache of applying for disability pay. Both mothers and fathers can participate and get their full salary for 1 year.
Well, 3 key Democrats are now backing away from the Iranian nuclear deal and their support of President Obama. Here they are, Steve Israel, Nina Lowry from New York, both of them, and Ted Deutsch from Florida. All now say they will vote when Congress reviews the plan next month.
And in his speech today, President Barack Obama pushed the nuclear deal with Iran, saying a congressional rejection would speed up Iran's access to a nuclear weapon.
By killing this deal, Congress would not merely pave Iran's pathway to a bomb, it would accelerate it.
So, did the president make a valid argument during his address today, and will it be enough to convince Congress and voters this is the right move to make? Let's find out the answers as we welcome in today's Newsmax Now Roundtable. And here with us today is former CIA analyst and senior vice president at the Center for Security Policy, Fleitz, and the former general counsel to the Democratic Party of Virginia, Stephen Cobb. Thank you both for joining us here today.
Thanks for having us.
All right, Fred, I want to start with you. In an interview with Jeffrey Goldberg of The Atlantic, Secretary of State John Kerry voiced concerns regarding a congressional rejection, saying, quote, the Ayatollah constantly believed that we were untrustworthy. You can't negotiate with us, that we will screw them. This, talking about a congressional rejection, will be the ultimate screwing. Shouldn't Kerry be more concerned, Fred, about the trustworthiness of the Ayatollah and the Iranians?
Well, John, those are hardly the words of a statesman that I expect of the Secretary of State. But moving beyond that, what really happened here is that the Ayatollah knew he had our number. Iran would not budge on a nuclear deal until we conceded uranium enrichment. When we did so in 2012, we essentially surrendered to the Iranian nuclear program. We made enormous concessions. Iran has given up very little. And I think what the real story is that the Ayatollah is worried that Congress will finally implement a strong U.S. policy and reject this American sellout to Iran. Stephen, what do you say?
Well, John Kerry's statements are taken out of a much larger discussion, but I think the point that he was highlighting there is that you don't want to fit into the kind of negative permutations and rhetoric of your adversary. And so he was talking about rejecting this deal that falls right into the false narrative that's being said about the United States abroad, and that we should be concerned about that. And certainly that is a reasonable concern.
Yeah, at the same time, though, you got the Ayatollah saying death to America, death to Israel, want to wipe Israel off the face of the map. How do you reconcile that with John Kerry worrying about Congress screwing the Ayatollah?
Well, I think what the issue there is that whether or not, when the Ayatollah goes around saying the United States isn't interested in any serious negotiation, isn't serious in diplomacy, that you don't want to play into his hands to make it look like the narrative that he's telling is a correct one. And so that's the point that the Secretary of State is clearly trying to make. And so what he's saying is don't play into the hands of the rhetoric. And that's a completely fair statement.
But I want to ask you something. Obama keeps saying over and over again that if Iran cheats, we will know. What's your response to that?
Well, I was a CIA analyst for 19 years. I worked on this issue for the CIA, the State Department, the House Intelligence Committee. And I can tell you, Amanda, that we won't know. Our intelligence about rogue state nuclear programs is very imperfect. Just about everything we learned about it in Iran was told to us concerning the nuclear program by an Iranian opposition group. There's been major gaps about the nuclear program in North Korea. Now, this administration has said we have perfect knowledge about the Iranian nuclear program. That is absolutely false. Frankly, we probably won't know if Iran decides to cheat.
All right, gentlemen, we'll have you both back. We got more coming up here on the other side of this commercial break. We're going to take a short little pause, though, and we'll continue the conversation, talking a little bit more about Hillary Clinton as well. We're also going to take a look at this shocking new video that was released of a student being restrained at a school with handcuffs. How far is too far when it comes to disciplining kids at school? Also, the former chairman of the Palm Beach County Republican Committee, Sid Dinerstein, joins us to discuss his latest column about school choice and how it may play a big role in attracting new voters to the GOP.
And back for part two of our roundtable. Joining us once again, former CIA analyst and senior vice president at the Center for Security Policy, Fred Fleitz, and former general counsel to the Democratic Party of Virginia, Stephen Cobb. Thank you both for sticking around.
All right, guys. Ed Klein spoke with Newsmax Prime host J.D. Hayworth last night. He says that Hillary is racing to stave off an indictment over her whole email system. Take a listen.
Which is going to come first? Is she going to be able to sew up the nomination by just throwing more money, more organization at the primaries so that she is unbeatable? Or will a criminal indictment come down from the Justice Department before that fact? And they're very concerned about which is going to come first.
All right, Stephen, which one is it going to be first?
Well, I think any talk of a criminal indictment at this point is ridiculous and closer to science fiction than it is real life. That comment, he cites no sources. He talks about, from my reporting. If someone's going to use the word criminal indictment, they better have something than their gut instinct, or at least cite to some area of law that supports that conclusion.
Well, Fred, we know. Fred, we now know the FBI is involved, although not looking at Hillary directly, but at the security of her email. And from everything that you've seen, you know what it's like to deal with classified information. Are we looking at smoke before we see the fire here with Hillary Clinton's email?
Look, I know Ed, I think he's a credible guy. I got to say, I'm a little skeptical whether there will be an indictment, but this is a very serious matter. National security information was found on her personal computer server. It shouldn't have been there. It is a violation of the law. I just don't know whether the Obama administration would indict one of its own, basically a former member of the Obama inner circle. I just don't think the president's going to do that. But I don't see it as science fiction, as my colleague does.
That's true. It would be very hard to imagine.
And I think there may be some questions, Stephen. I want to give you a chance to respond to that. Is this a clear violation of the law? Or did she just not follow proper protocol?
Well, I think there's nothing that's clear at this point. The only discussion about whether or not there was classified information, most of the reporting on that right now is focusing on whether or not information that at the time was not classified was later classified. And so you have this dialogue between the inspector generals of the state who thinks that the information is foilable and released, and the inspector generals in the intelligence community who think now it shouldn't be. But jumping to the conclusions and talking about criminal indictments is just so far-fetched, just an irresponsible thing to say at this point in time.
Well, we'll see what happens. We all know that kids in school kind of act up from time to time, but a recent video uploaded by the ACLU shows how a school resource officer decided to deal with two disabled students. Take a listen.
You don't get to swing at me like that. You can do what we've asked you to, or you can suffer the consequences. Now sit down in the chair like I've asked you to.
Okay, now the officer is standing by his decision to cuff two children. You see one right there, saying that they were causing physical and emotional pain to other children. But of course, their mothers are arguing that the handcuffs caused their kids emotional trauma. So my question, let's start with you, Fred. Did the officer take the appropriate action with these kids?
You know, as the parent of a disabled child, I find this very upsetting. I just find it horrible, and that's all I want to say about it.
Stephen, do you want to weigh in on this?
I don't have a whole lot more to add to Fred. I'm not a parent or a teacher or a law enforcement person, but it seemed incredibly startling and shocking to me as well.
Fred, let me ask you, I can obviously tell that you're very emotionally charged by the video. How should the officer have responded?
Well, I think you have to deal with disabled children and respect their abilities and treat them appropriately. But from what I've seen about this, I'm just so horrified. I'm beyond words on how you could treat a child with disabilities that way.
Now, according to the officer, he said the child was trying to hit him and was endangering other children. School officials say that one of the kids actually had to be restrained in the past because she was trying to injure other staff members. So I want to move this forward, though. And so my question, I guess, Stephen, would be, with more schools wanting inclusion with kids with special needs, do you believe today's public school system is equipped enough to handle these type of challenges, based on what you saw right there?
Well, I don't think what we saw right there, we're going to be able to extrapolate the needs of all public schools. We need to make sure that all our teachers and support staff have the resources, support, and training that they need in order to have a safe and supportive and instructional classrooms, and that should be a priority no matter what.
All right.
I think we can all agree on that. Thanks a lot for your time, gentlemen. Fred Fleitz, Stephen Cobb, thank you so much for being with us. Two very disparate topics, but important ones nonetheless. We're not done talking about education. Coming right up, former chairman of the Palm Beach County Republican Committee, Sid Dinerstein, joins us to discuss his latest column and how school choice may play a big role in this year's upcoming elections. All that and much more right after this quick commercial break.